Hello everyone, and welcome to Lighting Deep Dives. We are Sea Turtle Conservancy, a Florida-based nonprofit organization and the oldest sea turtle conservation group in the world. Come join our lighting team members as we sit down with real-world professionals to discuss the challenges with beachfront lighting and explore innovative solutions to help protect sea turtles from disorientation. In today's episode, our Development and Policy Coordinator, Stacey Gallagher, will chat with Teal Kawana, Environmental Program Supervisor with Palm Beach County. The county has one of the strongest lighting ordinances in the state. They will discuss how the county enforces its ordinance and how it overcomes common compliance challenges. So let's dive in.
So in addition to leading the county's reef, manatee, water quality, and marine debris programs, Teal oversees the sea turtle program, which often deals with coastal lighting. So we just want to thank Teal for taking the time to speak with us today. And I wanted to start off, Teal, by asking you what your background is and how you ended up getting into this field.
Hey, hi, Stacey. Thank you so much for inviting me to do this. First of all, I really appreciate it. And I guess just to give you some background about myself, I started in sea turtle lighting while I was still finishing up grad school. I was pursuing my master's in marine biology, and I had the opportunity to work with a municipality on the adoption of their own sea turtle lighting ordinance, and was hired specifically to get properties into compliance because they had just adopted the new ordinance. So that's kind of where I started learning all of this, and like I gained a background in code enforcement. I was placed in their code enforcement section of their building department, and kind of gave me this niche of where I was like a sea turtle biologist, but also a code enforcement official, and was able to connect both of those to help people get compliance there and find, lighting solutions that worked for them and that were safe for the turtles, but also safe for the properties as well. When I came to Palm Beach County about 5 years ago, that's what I was tasked with in my new role here, in doing the sea turtle lighting. And since then, I've moved up into a supervisor position. So now I supervise the team that does the sea turtle lighting for the county. Also, in my role, you mentioned in the beginning, like all the programs that I'm overseeing. So I have this unique opportunity to kind of connect all of those different aspects of marine conservation together, and like looking at reefs and how our turtles are using the reefs, but then also connecting that to beaches and our beach renourishment and how that's affecting the turtles, and then working on the lighting for those turtles to make sure they're getting their way to the ocean safely. We also do manatees and water quality, and like some research in the lagoon for seagrass with the turtles and the manatees as well. So like all these things in marine conservation are kind of interconnected, and that's a really cool way for me to like be in this position now and like kind of understand it all, and how the whole ecosystem is working together and how it's all affecting one another. But I am really lucky to have, an all female team, and they're awesome, awesome women that are very passionate about the work that they do. They're very hard workers. So I appreciate, everything that they do, and being able to lead their efforts and making sure that we're doing what's best for the environment here in Palm Beach County.
That's really interesting that you talked about you really are interacting with sea turtles at every life stage almost in your role, which is pretty fascinating. And in our experience with lighting, it is an interesting position that you're in because you do have to have the scientific and biological background, but it's largely dealing with people. It's knowing how to interact with people and know your audience and how to make these conservation messages digestible for them so they change their behavior. So you had already kind of alluded to Palm Beach County's lighting enforcement and its ordinance. And Palm Beach County actually has one of the strongest ordinances in the state, which is a huge achievement and very difficult to do. So we applaud you all for that. Can you describe the overall structure of the county's lighting ordinance and its enforcement?
Yeah, so the way that the ordinance is structured, so it's under our Unified Land Development Code. And as part of the Unified Land Development Code, there's Article 14, which covers environmental standards. And sea turtle protection and sand preservation is Chapter A of Article 14. We're the first chapter for the environmental standards. And under that chapter, all of our sea turtle protection standards are listed. And there's really just a few key components, but important, very important components. The beginning of it is really what goes over the sea turtle protection standards as far as new development goes, as well as existing development. So under new development, we have a section on sea turtle lighting permits. And for that, we oversee any of the new lighting being installed at existing facilities or just new overall construction in general. Whenever new properties are being built, we're able to see that on the front end and like review those projects and look at what they want to do, help them work through that process so that they're in compliance with the standards that are listed in the code. So that's one whole side. And then for existing facilities, it's going out and making sure that the properties that are within our jurisdiction are complying with what the code says for what's existing. As far as enforcement goes, we conduct a minimum of 3 lighting surveys each season. We start out the first week of March. As soon as sea turtle season starts, we, boots on the ground out there looking for compliance for the properties that are within our jurisdiction. And from that, we're taking data and photos of any properties that are exhibiting non-compliance with the code. We'll come back to the office, we create letters, we create photo pages to give to those properties and send those off and try to make contact with them. We have worked really hard to create relationships with a lot of the condos and hotels, property managers, as well as some of the coastal residents in single family homes. So we do have contact information for a lot of those places and can reach out to them via email or phone. And usually that's like the quickest way for us to get compliance is just kind of having a conversation with them and reminding them it's turtle season and they have some things to fix. So usually after that first survey, we do see a lot of compliance by the second. And then by the third survey, if we're not noticing compliance happening or like we can't get a hold of them, we can move on to a notice of hearing from that after the third notice is issued. We haven't had to do that because we have been really successful in making contact with these properties and getting them into compliance. We've even gone as far as hand delivering things with properties we couldn't contact. And normally, if that's the case, it's usually just because they aren't here and they're not receiving the letters. So we do work really hard to make sure that they know that there is non-compliance happening at the property. We also we take more of an educational approach, and it's also really important for us to meet with these properties in person if they do have a violation. And we definitely encourage that with them because it's so much easier for us to be on site with them and point out the issues. And usually it's something so simple that they don't even know that like if it's just a simple tweak of this, then we won't see it from the beach anymore. And you change it out to a different bulb and it's already shielded, but it's not the right wavelength. So it's just explaining those things in person with them and like having a conversation back and forth, like, what are you looking for? Here's what we're looking for, and kind of trying to come to this medium ground where everybody feels comfortable with what's happening at the property. So, and I'm sure that you all have experienced that in your roles too with Sea Turtle Conservancy and retrofitting properties and stuff. It's just so much better to have those in-person conversations and talking to people and getting out there.
Like for us with our lighting retrofit program, sometimes people don't want to change their lights just for altruistic reasons. Like sometimes the turtles isn't enough. We have to say it also benefits you because you will be saving money on your utility bill. You won't be getting fined. It's a luxurious kind of atmosphere with this wildlife lighting. So I know in addition to having this really strong lighting ordinance language and enforcement, something that Palm Beach County does that is slightly different from other places is you have this opt-in, opt-out structure for the ordinance. So for folks who don't know what that is, or other local governments who might be interested in doing something like this, can you kind of explain what that entails?
So we do have an opt-in, opt-out situation with our code, and that was developed when the code was made decades ago. And when that happened, the municipalities had the option to be under the jurisdiction of our ordinance, or they could opt out, create their own ordinance or code, and enforce that themselves. We right now we have 11 municipalities in unincorporated areas that are oceanfront that fall under our code, and those municipalities are ones that don't have their own code or their own ordinance. So because of that, we go out, we provide the enforcement for them, the surveys, everything is on our end. The other ones, they're supposed to be doing that on their own. Some of them have copied our code verbatim. Others have come up with their own language, but when this code was adopted, part of the deal was that if they were going to opt out, that they had to have a code that was as strict or stricter than our own. And that was related to beach nourishment funding as well. So in order for them to receive those funds and continue to receive them, they had to be enforcing the code and make it strict or as strict as ours, or I'm sorry, as strict or stricter than ours. It's unique, but we're trying to get everybody on the same page and all working towards the same goal.
Yeah. So we've talked a little bit about enforcement, and I have alluded to the fact that the county has one of the strongest language scores in the state based off of this analysis that FWC, STC, and National Wildlife Federation completed in 2022. So just kind of very summarized, concise, what parts of your ordinance do you feel are the strongest? Like what makes your ordinance so strong in terms of the language that maybe others can look to?
I mean, I think the strongest part is definitely the whole sea turtle lighting application process and having to get a permit and have us review the sea turtle lighting prior to the property being built. So that is required for any property that falls within our jurisdiction. The jurisdiction includes anything that's 600 feet from the mean high water. So that is encompassing all of our oceanfront properties, but then you get sometimes a second tier of houses behind the houses that are physically on the beach. So it's capturing both so that you can enforce all of that. And I think that's important too. Another thing that I think is a strength is the fact that we address not only direct lighting, but also indirect lighting. And that's really important because we have seen sea turtles disorienting because of indirect lighting. And a lot of other ordinances only address things that you can physically see the fixture and know where it's coming from. But we address indirect, which is, the glow on the side of a building from maybe a pool or from parking lot lights that you can't see from the beach, but you know that that's what's causing it. So that has been really helpful for us to address those sort of lighting issues as well and help prevent sea turtle disorientations in that sense. We have another part included for beach topography. So we encourage coastal residents and the condos, hotels to put beach topography such as like vegetation or other barriers in front of the property so that it is blocking light from the beach and adding to that, potential for turtles disorienting because of other fixtures or other things behind the building that might not be within our jurisdiction. So I think that's helpful too.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with the jurisdiction. That's always one of the biggest sticking points is what is actually included. Because as you mentioned, properties that are just across the street from the beach can also be problematic. One thing that I think a lot of ordinances still have not kind of gotten over or have updated is the wavelength aspect of it. A lot of ordinances still require bug bulbs or have low pressure sodium in there, or even like coated bulbs they still have. So switching to long wavelength, the requirement for that is super important. And even like you mentioned, including indirect lighting and of course interior lighting. Anything dealing with tinting, window coverings is always a really big sticking point. And I think that aspect of Palm Beach County's ordinance is quite robust as well, right?
It is. So we do have a wavelength standard. So it has to be 570 nanometers or above. So it is in the long wavelength range. And we do make sure that anything new being installed or even the existing is falling within that range. As you mentioned, interior lighting, we do have the interior lighting code. And I think this may come up later as well, but for the interior lighting, the way that it's written, we do have to have, or properties have to have 45% or less visible light transmittance tint installed on their windows, and they can also instead use curtains or blackout blinds. But that's kind of where the downfall is with the ordinance. Like, we do cover interior lighting, but one area for improvement would be that the way that it's written, it says alternatively, or additionally, that they can install the tint in place of the curtains. But as I'm sure with new technology and lighting and things being much brighter in interiors, that 45% isn't always cutting it. And we do ask them to close their blinds, like if we can still see it through the tint, but we're kind of in this like gray area where it says alternatively, so they can kind of pick or choose. And we do get pushback on that. Like, well, I have the turtle tint, so why isn't it okay? And I'm like, because I can still see your lights and it's causing disorientation. So if you could close the blinds, that would be great.
Yeah, the devil is really in the details with these ordinances.
Yep,
Like you said, one word can make so much of a difference.
it completely does.
One thing that I am curious about is, what is maybe one challenge that you can think of that has been one of the biggest roadblocks or obstacles when it comes to either the language in your ordinance or enforcing it?
So our code does not mention anything about temporary lighting. So when there's special events that are going on at the properties or on the beach, we have no control over that. And we have had situations where, there's been a wedding authorized on the beach and there's all kinds of lighting associated with that. And we don't know about it because we're not out there every single night, and it happens. And then we kind of find out after the fact because a disorientation happened. So we do want to include for the future something related to temporary lighting to kind of cover special event situations like that. And we also don't have anything for temporary lighting such as flashlights. So that I think would be helpful in the future too, because we need something when those situations come up.
Yeah, it's really fascinating how different each coastal area in Florida is, because there have been some local governments I've worked with where special events were the number one topic. It was like during nesting season, we have a wedding, we have a party, we have something every single night. All these hotels are making them happen. Like this is something that must be in there. So it's interesting to kind of see, what the sticking points are and what the big kind of things of importance are in different areas. One thing that we have been getting asked a lot recently is, can you provide a direct link between a strong lighting ordinance and enforcement and a decrease in disorientations? Which that is a really loaded question that has a lot of nuance and context and caveats
Yeah.
needed. But I'm pretty sure you track kind of violations at the beginning of the season and then violations at the end of the season. And we can presume that if violations or problematic lights are going down, then disorientations are going down. Is that something that you would say is the case?
Yes. So we do track throughout the season, and the way that I track compliance is that, we're looking at the property over time. So over those 3 surveys, we're making sure that changes are happening and there's improvements each time. We typically see by the 3rd survey, 90% compliance rates. So
Wow.
we start out closer to the 60% range and then work our way up to 90%. This summer, that is what happened. Like by our 3rd round of surveys, we were seeing 90% compliance rate across all of our jurisdiction. I think, yes, it does help in eliminating disorientations, but there are also other issues that we have in some of the municipalities, such as sky glow from inland sources that are also contributing to disorientations. So that's another challenge for us because sky glow from these inland cities that are really big and like have a lot of lighting going on are making the that west side of the dune looks so bright that the turtles are disorienting towards that. Thankfully, though, when they are getting in front of properties that are compliant and dark, they're usually turning and making their way back to the ocean. So we do see that happening. We're not having like full on disorientations where they're walking out to the street and never coming back. But like I think a lot of it does have to do with sky glow when we are still continuing to see disorientations. Um, I could give an example.
Yeah, please.
Um, so we had a hotel that had traditionally like a lot of exterior lighting that was white, that was extremely bright. And the permit holder for that area, she had always had disorientations in that section of beach. But when we changed everything out, not one. She didn't have
Wow.
nothing anymore. I mean, I can definitely like send you the pictures too to show you the before and after because you can even see like from standing on the beach the glow coming out of that beach access was completely eliminated. And they had like a little storage hut on the side of the beach access that was like completely visible whenever all the white lighting was there. But then when they switched to all the amber and red, couldn't see it at all, like
Wow.
completely gone. All the disorientation that was going on there went away and success. Hatchlings were
Yeah.
making it to the water. So um, that's like definitely what we want to see. And it was, simple changes that they didn't even realize were causing a problem.
Wow. That's so significant too, because I feel like compared to other threats that sea turtles face, like climate change, water pollution, light pollution is relatively easy to fix. And you just demonstrated that. And when we talk about disorientations, I don't think a lot of people realize that disorientation can mean death for hatchlings and for adults. So when you make this small change, you could potentially be saving, I mean, in places like Palm Beach County, where there are hundreds of nests on the beach, it is a lot of hatchlings. And these are federally protected species who are still recovering. So just the fact that you were able to share that story and demonstrate that positive change, you saved turtles through this ordinance and the fact that you were able to enforce it. So that's really powerful and shows how important these ordinances are and the presence of local governments to carry them out through enforcement. So that's amazing.
You.
Yeah. So I think that's about all of the questions I had. I just wasn't sure if you had anything else you wanted to add about the county's ordinance, their sea turtle protection efforts, or anything like that.
Um, I think I was gonna add, so another thing about us and my group and my staff is we started an annual meeting with our marine turtle permit holders, and we kind of act as like a liaison for them and the municipalities, and just helping them get what they need from the municipalities, or even if it's something simple like having a hotel wait to pull out their chairs in the morning so that they can complete the survey. um, I wanted to start that for a long time with them, and we just started it last year, and we're planning on doing it annually because it gives them a space to create relationships with us, but also with one another too, and kind of come together. And that's also another thing that's unique about Palm Beach County. Like, because there's so much nesting happening here, there are a lot of different groups that are contributing to that effort. So we have, I think 10 different groups throughout the county that are conducting sea turtle nesting surveys on the beach. And having that relationship with them too is helpful to us, because then they can let us know where disorientations are happening and where we can pinpoint problems and like our hotspot areas so that we can get together and figure out how to fix it. So that has been really beneficial for us, and like kind of being that middle person to help them out too. Um, Whenever you offer your Sea Turtle Conservancy lighting workshops here in our area, and you give us the opportunity to present on our code and our initiatives, that is so helpful too, because after those workshops, we have people from other municipalities that are working there reach out to us and ask more questions and want to get more involved, and then want to be more involved in the enforcement process in our opt-out municipalities, and just like wanting us to come and help train their code enforcement personnel and just help them kind of walk through like the steps of their code, or like if they literally have our code verbatim that they're tasked with enforcing because they're now out of our jurisdiction. They kind of like want us to walk through an explanation of that and help them understand it, and then just help understand like our process and how we do the enforcement and what we're looking for. So that's been nice too, because we've gone out with code enforcement from the opt-out municipalities to kind of help them out and understand it. And that's, from you and your connection, and putting that on for code enforcement personnel in the area and helping us out too. So we appreciate that.
Course. And I feel like throughout this, some themes that I've noticed are the relationship building that is super critical. As I mentioned in the beginning, there are so many entities involved in this in some way, the permit holders, lighting distributors, government entities, NGOs, property representatives. So the fact that you are offering these forums for them all to be together in one room, I think is really a good thing for folks to hear about and hopefully duplicate in their area. And it also seems like you all are very proactive in your education and enforcement of your ordinance, which is another thing that a lot of local governments we interact with do not either don't want to do or are not able to do due to the issues that I mentioned before, staffing, budget. But I think it shows the good that can come from being proactive is that you have this 90% compliance rate at the end of the season. So I think those are really good ideas for folks to learn from. So I just want
Well,
to thank you for all that you guys do and for taking the time today to talk with me about Palm Beach County's lighting ordinance and enforcement.
thank you so much. I appreciate this so much. And like I said, like, of course, you are helping us out by helping to spread the word for us too, and just giving us the opportunity to explain how our ordinance works, how our enforcement works. That's so important too, just from an awareness standpoint for Palm Beach County. And hopefully, yeah, that helps other governments throughout the state. And I am here for questions or, just to talk more about turtles and what we can do to help them. So I really appreciate you giving us this opportunity.
Yeah, and if people want to learn more about Palm Beach County's department, is there somewhere quick that you could recommend that they go to learn more?
Yeah, so they if you literally just Google PBC we pop up. But yeah, you can go on the county's website, learn more about Palm Beach County, and click on environmental resources management. We have a whole page dedicated under our site to sea turtles and sea turtle lighting. On there, you can see our map for our what's in our jurisdiction and what's not. Our Article 14, Chapter A, sea turtle protection standards are in there as well. And even the application for our sea turtle lighting permits too. So
Well, thank you.
thank you.